In the debate around farming, nature and climate, you see there's an increasing recognition for the need to change our food systems, and rightfully so, but it's often forgotten the discussion of how other produce is made in other production lines, and how that impacts on people and the planet. In 2021, there was 57 billion spent on clothes in the UK. And most of the clothing and textile products that are coming here are going around the world on a longer journey before they get to retailers here. And the UK clothing and textile industry depends greatly on a global production that at every step of the supply chain is trying to cut costs and make sure that there's maximum profit. This is going to undoubtedly have effects on the environment, and often we see them to be negative. And in the not too distant past, there was a thriving fibre industry here, and due to a range of factors including globalisation, industrialisation and change in consumer demands, we've seen this decline to the point that there's no processing facilities for natural fibres in the UK or Ireland, and very limited wool processing facilities. And looking at wool for one, it's used to be viewed as a valuable resource in its own right, and now is getting seen almost as a byproduct of the meat production, while flax and hemp production for fibres is really seen as a relic of the past. This begs a question, is there a role for fibre production in the future, and can this be part of a widespread transition to a nature-friendly farming nation? Despite the large-scale contraction of our domestic textile sector, there's increasing amount of people producing and sourcing viable supply of textiles and fibre products on a model based on regenerative practices, and today that's what we're going to discuss. So I'll just go through the panel here and give you a chance to tell us a bit more about where you're coming from and your line of work. Starting with you, Maria. Could you give us an intro to your farm and just tell you how you're adding value to wool?
Hi, so yeah, I'm Maria Benjamin. I live in the Lake District on my partner's family farm. He's 6th generation on his farm, and I've kind of come in, I guess, with an outsider's perspective and looking at things critically and thinking about why, as a farmer, having to have a second job to be able to farm, and looking at how we can add value to what's actually on the farm and what's being produced. And one of those things was looking at wool, because I think at the time when I joined in 2015, he was getting around 30 pence a kilo for his wool, and it cost him £1.50 per sheep to shear. And, a wool fleece is around 1.5 to 2 kilos. So he was losing money every time. And I could see that wool products in the shops were expensive. So I really kind of looked into how we could add value to to our own wool. So that first year in 2015, I think I had 20 kilos processed and made into knitting yarn and sold that. And from there to this year, where we had 7 tons of wool processed, working with 22 Lake District farmers making tweed and blankets. So I can show that there is a desire for it, for a short supply chain, with making products with real provenance. People want it. They want that emotional connection with something that's valuable and not something that has no story. And so even on that small scale, we can show that it is valuable, it is worth pursuing, it is worth investing in.
It's great to hear that positive story and to see that you're seeing that response from people. I'll go on to Malou. We'll get back to the wool some more and on with the session. But Malou, could you give us an intro to the Fibershed movement?
Sure, yeah. So I'm the co-founder of Fibershed Ireland, and I'll tell you a bit about it in a second. But first, I originally started as a natural dyer for textiles. That's kind of where my journey with textiles started. And once you go down that rabbit hole, you start looking at how cloth is made, where does it come from, and not just the clothes themselves, but the fibre. So you go down that rabbit hole, and I found the Fibershed movement. So this is a global movement. It started in California in 2009. And the whole idea is, if we think of a watershed, like an area of land where water comes from that feeds that area, that's kind of the concept, except for fibre. So each kind of individual fibre shed defines the boundaries of their fibre shed. In our case, Fibershed Ireland, it's the whole island of Ireland. There's fibre sheds all over the world, and they're popping up everywhere. And the whole idea is trying to bring our textile industry as close to home as possible. So in the case of Ireland, bringing wool and flax, which are our main crops, and hemp as well, making it locally from the ground up. So how is the fibre grown? How is it processed? How is it turned into cloth? And then using that cloth to make finished products. And we're really focused on regenerative farming as well. So making, not just bringing it locally, but making it better in a way that actually enhances our communities and our landscapes.
Fantastic, thank you. And on to Helen then, can you tell us a bit more about your farm and what you're doing there to tackle sustainable fibre production?
Thanks, Cormac. I could almost just say what Maria said, very, very similar kind of, except for flax. So we have, I grew up on a farm just outside Cookstown, went off to university, got a completely different career, thought I was done with farming, and then I married a farmer, and now I'm back farming. But it was the same sort of thing, kind of just looking at it, even just from a business point of view, how can we make better use of this amazing asset that we have? We have 50 acres and, we absolutely should be able to make a really good living from that and be able to do it in a way that is, sustainable and regenerative. So it was sort of scouting around for what could we do, where is the gap, what are other people not doing? That was the main thing, what are other people not doing? And there was a kind of mad moment where we were looking at linen, and because we were trying to source linen for some packaging, it's a long story which I'll not go into, but we kind of noted that that supply chain had disappeared. So you've all heard of Irish linen, right? It's globally renowned. And yet what we discovered was it wasn't actually being grown here really at all. And we just thought, we knew it had been grown on the farm before. So, there was nothing new in that. It was, it was a proven thing. We knew we could grow it. So it just seemed quite we thought it was quite an obvious thing to do, would be, sure, why don't we plant a field of flax and we'll see what happens, kind of laissez-faire attitude. That's where innovation comes from, right? Not really knowing what's going to happen next. Anyway, that we went down a rabbit hole, as Malou has said it is, and just the more we grow it, the more we look into it, the more we go down this route, the more potential we see in it. And I'll talk a bit more about that later.
Brilliant. It's great to hear that, and I love that story. I think it was you were trying to buy some Irish linen, wasn't it? When and you seen it was so hard to get. Yeah, it seems crazy when it is such a famous thing too. So that's sort of taking it from the clothing background and where we're here and here, and we've also got Peter Quigley. And could you give us an intro to natural fibre composites and your work with them in hemp and flax as well?
Okay, thanks, Cormac. Yeah, so I'm not a farmer. I once tried to grow potatoes in the back garden, got 4 and gave up. So that was it. It's funny that about 10 years later, I'm sitting here now working very closely with Helen in particular. So I'm from composites industry. I'm an engineer by trade, aerospace engineer. Normally get a boo word at events like this for that, but we're trying to change what happens in engineering and manufacturing, make it more sustainable by doing our part. Start with what a composite is, because that's the first question I always get. You probably touch it every day. We're talking about glass fibres, we're talking about carbon fibres. So glass fibres in particular is what we want to replace. So glass fibre, composites, mixed with the resins, bathtubs, shower trays. Okay, that's what you touch probably every day. If you have a nice racing bike or any bike frame that costs over £500, probably carbon fibre. If you look around you, coming up on the drive, wind turbines, there's a lot of glass fibre in the blades and carbon fibre once you get over 50-metre diameter. So there's a lot of glass fibre being used out there. It's a $22 billion industry globally. It's huge. And we import most of it from China. About 90% of it comes from China. So there's a lot of supply chain challenges around that as well. My background, I worked in Bombardier Aerospace, which became Spirit, which is probably about to become Airbus. Now I did a lot of work developing the wing with carbon fibre. I did a lot of work with Jaguar Land Rover then, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on. So the last 3 years, I moved to NIAS Centre, which is a Queen's and Ulster University run composite R&D centre, general manager there. And we did a bit of research to look at the opportunity and the challenges of establishing a natural fibre supply chain here in Northern Ireland. Roll forward 3 years of looking at that. I've set up my own company to go and tackle this. And so Athena Blue Innovation, my company, we do the design work for companies, but our long term is we want to re-establish a natural fibre supply chain here, flax and hemp, growing it, re-establishing the process for textiles and optimising that for engineering applications, and doing it all here in Northern Ireland. And that's what our big mission is in our company.
Good, and the mission's going well so far. I'll go back to email and we'll talk more about the wool. And you'd mentioned already with the costs, often the money coming back from wool not even covering the cost of shearing. I know I've done a day of shearing sheep and there was 4 of us working all day, and the day finished, I asked how much the pile of wool was worth and they said 90 quid. And that was with 4 people working from the early hours to the late evening. So I can definitely see the difficulty in that, and how the numbers just don't add up. So, you know, this is a new thing. Of course, we have been producing wool here for a long time, similar to flax being grown here. So do you think the wool industry in the UK is beyond repair, or do you see hope and opportunities for it to grow regional wool production?
Yeah, I guess if I didn't see opportunity, I wouldn't be sitting here. So I definitely see opportunity. There is still a wool industry. There's just quite a lot of imported wool. So there's still kind of spinning mills. There's still weaving mills. They're still there. And it's kind of like the, I guess, the high-end sort of fashion and the kind of artisan fashion that are still using these industries. It's the kind of high street that don't. They get everything made abroad and synthetic. So the industries are still there. They're still being used, but we just need to use them more. I completely understand that it's really hard for farmers, and you know, I wanted to buy a farmer's wool this year, and he just said, oh, we just burned it, because it's pointless to, it's a waste of our time to pack it up and send it to the wool board because we get nothing for it. And I thought, you know, for me it feels a wasted opportunity, because when I do process the wool, I'm paying the farmer, the haulier, the scourer, the spinner, the dyer, the weaver, and myself. That's 7 people benefiting financially from a decision that I've made. And I feel that it's really important for me to just to take that positive kind of outlook and try and push for a better return for farmers. So we pay the farmers a minimum at the moment of £1 a kilo. So where they might be getting, say, 15 pence, 30 pence, they get £1. And this year it's gone up to 1.25. So we try and give the farmers a profit share. So always thinking about increasing it. So my hope is in a few years' time they'll get £5 a kilo. That's what my ambition is. It's not that we make more profit. It's that creating a system of working where everyone is respected. And that goes back to the regenerative principles of farming really can feed into how you do business, and it isn't so it isn't about depleting the land, and it isn't about depleting the people that you're involved with so that they're only just scraping by to make you more profit. It's that it improves conditions for everyone, so it is a healthier business ecosystem.
Yeah, and you can see that going in the right direction with the work you've done so far.
Yeah, absolutely. There's more and more interest in it. We've just I've just been working I've been asked to help on a website, greatbritishwoolrevival.co.uk. That's about creating it's kind of like a resource for designers and makers to be able to access British wool. And we want that to be for the whole of the sort of British Isles. We're including Ireland in that. And I did a little bit of research on Irish wool, and it's pretty much all imported merino being sold as Irish wool, because some of the processing, the spinning and weaving and knitting will be in Ireland, but the materials aren't Irish wool, and it's so sad. And you see it with Welsh wool as well. Welsh blankets made from imported wool, and it should be from the sheep that are grazing right there on the hills, and that would make a massive difference, I think, to the experience of buying a product that's really from that place, and the kind of the deceit I find really irritating, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a bit of a flaw there, isn't there? You don't have to go too far to find a sheep around here, like, so it doesn't really make sense to be taking them from anywhere else. I'll go back to you, Helen, here, just to talk a bit more about how you diversified your farm business into fibre processing and turning flax into linen on your farm. You're the first commercial producer in Northern Ireland for the last, in 40 years. And in turn, then you're tackling the challenge that comes with that in terms of mid-scale infrastructure to allow for the supply chain from farm to fibre processing. And what do you find are the barriers that you're working to overcome in that?
Yeah, I don't know where to start with that. That's a really big question. You see the way you said sort of turning flax into linen, as if that's easy. I very quickly discovered that it's really not easy. We were quite naive when we first planted flax because we just assumed that there would be processing down the road somewhere. There'd be some mill somewhere that we would send our flax to, and they would sort it all out for us and do the rest. And I would have my lovely range of tableware that I had planned to sell, you know. But what I realised, and I remember going up to visit Herman and Marion Bauer up in Flax Mill Textiles up in Dungiven, and standing in their lovely room, they went and bought up some of the last yarn that would have been produced in Northern Ireland from Herdman's Mill and Sinton's Mill and all those other places that have all closed now, and I just hadn't realised that. And I remember Marion sort of saying to me, no, there's nowhere you can send your stuff to be processed. So that was a bit of a knockback, as you can imagine. But we then, being the resilient folk that we are, found by a whole series of events some processing equipment. And I don't know if you know the flax to linen bit is, you know, like Maria said, there is, you know, retting and breaking and scutching and spinning and weaving and beetling if you want it. So there's all of these stages that you have to go through. So where we are at now, we have the retting bit sorted, big upcycled cheese vat. We just soak the flax in that for 11 nights. So we got that bit sorted. We've built a scutching turbine, built a building to put the scutching turbine in, and that allows us to process probably about 200 kilos a day, roughly, of this stuff. So that gets us to this stage. You're welcome to come up and have a look at this stuff after. So it's like raw, a lot of people say it looks like hair, flax and hair, but that's actually a product that we can sell, which is great because we can sell it to hand spinners who want to hand spin it and hand weave it and make textile out of it. We can sell it to plumbers. Flax is used as, it was a traditional thing, it was used as plumbing tape. Our biggest customer by far to date has been the film industry. They love this stuff. They even buy like the raw flax, but they're particularly into this for set dressing and so on. So quite a lot there. And then I was at a conference, and Peter started talking about their need for flax for composites. And you know, there's potential to even just turn this as it is into composite. But I'll let you talk about that next bit. But sorry, to sum that up. The big challenge for us now is we can get it to this stage, but getting it spun is the next big challenge, because whilst there are wool spinning mills, flax spinning is not the same thing, and there's no spinning mills anywhere in the UK or Ireland. I keep waiting for somebody to go, no, Helen, there's one down the road that you just haven't heard about, but no. So our options now are send it to Safla in France. So that's one option. So we're planning to take maybe a ton over to France to get it spun. And the big hope here is that Morn Textiles ran a crowdfunder campaign a while back and raised £40,000 to start restoring some machinery that they have. So we're really hoping that they can get a local mill up and running, and we can actually get the full process back up and running, hopefully within the next few years.
Yeah, so even with the amount of innovation that you've done on the farm and getting that scutching machine, am I right there? You still can only get to a certain level. You still need that infrastructure to get beyond it, yeah. Well, fingers crossed for the Mourne project. That sounds exciting. I'll go to Malou then. And Fibershed is emerging across the world, as you've said yourself. Can you give us any examples of countries that we should watch and we can learn from? And then also, what's this current state of play here on the island of Ireland?
Yeah, so I'll start with the current state of play in Ireland and just kind of build up on what Maria said. Here, even in Ireland, in the whole island, even if we do have wool, and some of it is actually being used for making yarn. I've got some different examples here that you're welcome to look at when we're done. Even then, we have to send it to Bradford or to Germany or to Portugal to be cleaned. So wool needs to be cleaned or scoured before anything can be done with it. Even if you want to use it as a construction material or whatever, it needs to be clean, and that doesn't happen here in Ireland yet. So so that's a big part, kind of like getting that up and running. That's one of the big barriers that we have to using our own wool. Helen has already kind of explained what happens with linen. I guess also we are all very, all the different players in Ireland, we're a small island, and most producers are small producers. There's a big mill in Donegal, there's a medium mill in Kilkenny, and there's a few other smaller ones happening around. But other than that, we're all like small players at a farming level and at a processing level. So kind of it's all about reconnecting those smaller players to, be stronger together. We're not going to end up with with the type of machinery and mills that you have in the UK, just because we're a much smaller place. But if we can kind of come together, that's kind of our vision, and that's what we're working towards. So that's kind of the current state of play. Examples of other things that are happening in other fibre sheds, and specific to regenerative agriculture, because I thought that was important for this conference. So the Northern California Fibershed, which is the one that actually started the whole thing, they've been working on helping farmers transition to regenerative agriculture for a few years, and they've developed a program called the Climate Beneficial Program. So they're really focused on, their main focus at first was wool, but now they're working towards cotton and flax and hemp as well. So it's a very robust program that they've developed over the years. They've had really good funding from government agencies and from private donors as well. So basically, if you're a farmer and you want to start producing your fibre regeneratively and therefore get a premium price for it, you kind of sign up with them. They'll send a farm planner to your farm to look at what's happening, a carbon farm planner to your farm, look at what's happening, look at the context. They'll make up a really comprehensive plan of these are specific steps you can take to improve the quality of your soil, of your biodiversity, of your water catchment, etc. Stuff like applying compost, stuff like growing more hedgerows, planting trees, etc. And then once you have your plan as a farmer, you can choose what actions you're going to take. It is, it's up to you. You get the choice what actions you're going to start taking, and then once you start proving that you're taking those actions, you become part of this program, and therefore you can start selling your fibre at a premium price. Fibershed has also developed quite a really cool marketing. So they're connecting these farmers with really high-end designers, brands, people that want to produce finished garments or finished goods with fibre that is actually verified to be beneficial for the environment. So they've done that part for them. So once you become part of the program, you can sell your fibre at a premium price, which is really, really, really cool. And that's happening in California and in New York. In New York, it's really interesting because it's actually started as a buying cooperative. So it was a bunch of designers that got together, and we want to buy fibre in bulk. How can we get it? So it's a cooperation amongst designers. It's pre-competitive. Instead of trying to compete each other out for the best fibre, they all come together. They're all kind of relatively small or medium designers, and then they seek out farmers that are doing positive things, and they bulk buy their fibre. So it's kind of like helping each other out. So now they've started implementing the Climate Beneficial Program as well for the farmers in there. So they know that there's a market because there's this cooperative of designers that's going to buy their fibre, and therefore they have the financial means to be able to implement whatever they need to implement at farm level. And in the UK, in southeast. the southeastern Fibershed, which is London and kind of, the southeast. They're starting to kind of map out, especially smaller farmers who are already implementing these kinds of beneficial practices. They're starting to map them out and trying to link them with, again, designers who are ready to pay a premium and want the, this story of like regenerative fiber. This is good for the environment. The clothes you're wearing are actually helping sequester carbon and improve biodiversity. So they're trying to link up individual farmers with people who are ready to support that. So I mean, plenty of great ideas happening all over the world.
Definitely, that sounds really exciting. It just sounds like a really positive move, especially if you can see that that there's going to be a sale at the end. If you can get that shown to farmers, then it's even more incentive to get involved and to be able to make those changes that you're mentioning there. Do you think there's room for that in the island of Ireland then? You mentioned, I heard like New York and then London. Do you think it requires a big city to be beside it to demand that sort of supply chain demand? Or do you think it could be brought across here too?
Yeah, no, I mean, not at all. So here in Ireland, we have started, 2 years ago, we started a small group of farmers that are interested in or already implementing regenerative farming practices, and Helen is one of our amazing farmers. And we kind of get together once a month to share knowledge, to learn about different things we can be doing. Helen and her dad recently gave us a brilliant talk on water quality and how to manage that on the farm, for example. So we kind of like our knowledge sharing and also trying to collaboratively build something that is relevant to the island of Ireland, because obviously some of the things that are happening in California might not be relevant to us, but how can we do something equivalent that is beneficial for the farmer, beneficial for their land, and financially beneficial for everyone involved? So we're kind of working towards that. It'll probably be at a different scale and a different shape than what's happening in other places, but the aim is the same, to clothe ourselves with stuff that is good for the environment.
Sounds like a good plan, yeah. And over to Peter again. So you're at the forefront, as you mentioned, of the natural fibre composites here in Northern Ireland and growing globally, helping to bring together the major players in the supply chain in Northern Ireland here. And do you think is there a growing market? Is there a market here already? Is it growing, and is there opportunities to grow the sector more widely?
Yeah, so there is a market. 100%. We've seen a big change in the last 5 years. 2018, sustainability became a big word in manufacturing, whether it's automotive, aerospace, construction, particularly starting to come now as well, wind turbines. Some of it was greenwashing. Some of it is to meet their market, because the market wants more sustainable products. I don't know how many of them, maybe at a policy level within a company, have actually said we're doing this for the right reasons. But what I will tell you is that there's engineers out there who care about it, to do it the right way, and there is policy within industry, from government level right down. We have the net zero target, 2050. Companies have to meet that. We don't know what penalties will come in. So that's created a big change in manufacturing. We also have changes in technology, which are driving the opportunity for natural fibres. So most of us drove here today. Some of us probably have electric vehicles. There's a big move towards electric-powered vehicles, and it's great, sustainable at nighttime whenever you're charging the car from the wind turbines. But the reality is, lithium-ion batteries they're higher carbon footprint. Probably nearly the car, an electric car, is twice the carbon footprint of a combustion engine car, and you have to mine lithium-ion out in Africa and other parts of the world. So actually the cars themselves are not as sustainable. So that's what automotive companies in particular are trying to change. They're trying to get the carbon footprint, and it's not just about that, it's about water usage, it's about mining. It's no longer called carbon footprint, it's environmental impact analysis and life cycle analysis. So I was working with Jaguar Land Rover on the I-Pace. So I-Pace was out, they were using it as a demo car to try and build more sustainability into it, reduce waste. And the problem we have with battery cars is batteries are heavy. Okay, they add about 200 kilograms of weight to a car. Range is the most important thing on an electric car. I'm doing 350 miles this weekend. I'm charging off 2 kilowatts at home, so I've got range anxiety this weekend. So if you want to increase range, they've actually reached a point of diminishing returns, where you can put a bigger battery pack in, but it's going to add 30, 40 kilograms to the vehicle, but it's not actually going to give you that much more range because of that weight. Okay, it's starting to plateau off. So if you want to increase range, you need to put more batteries in, so you need to lightweight the vehicle. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing, if you take a high-powered electric vehicle, like an I-Pace, it's got more torque than a Formula 1 car. What that does is twists the chassis. So they have to put an extra 130 kilograms of aluminium into the chassis to stop it from twisting whenever you put the foot down. Okay, so you're adding weight again, so you need lightweighting. So automotive needs lightweighting, and so they have to turn to composites for that. But the solution out there is carbon fibre and it's glass fibre. They're both very energy intensive processes. They're not made in, there's one glass factory in the UK. Most of it comes from all over the world. And if we look at hemp and flax, which is minus 2,000 kilograms of CO2 per tonne, glass is plus 2,000 and carbon fibre is plus 18,000. Okay, so we actually got to a point where we were developing a new chassis, new composite chassis with Jaguar, and well, COVID came along for a start, didn't help. But then two engineers or two people from Jaguar came along and introduced themselves to the program lead and said, "We're from sustainability department." And he went, "Who are you? Didn't know you existed." Okay, and they said, "This is not going to go because the carbon footprint impact's too high. It's going to increase carbon footprint. We need to decrease it." So between that and COVID, that project sort of came to a bit of an end, which takes us then on to, this is how important it is now. There's now 200 people working in the sustainability department in Jaguar Land Rover. It's 100 times more important to them. So that brings us on to where do we get our fibres from? And that brings us on to flax and hemp. And we know that flax and hemp, they're being used in composites at the minute. They're being used in Formula 1 as a demo. But we have problems in that adoption. And the first thing is the performance. Stiffness is good, but the strength of the fibres is not comparable to glass fibres. So we have a bit of work to do to get that strength up. We need to increase that and the inconsistency. The second thing is price. The price point's too high to compete with glass fibres which are out there. And there's a price for sustainability and companies are willing to pay for that. But we need to get the price down. And what we're trying to do is not do that through beating up the supply chain. We're trying to optimise the supply chain, because we spend a lot of time in composites industry taking a yarn, putting a lot of processing to get into a yarn. And first thing we do in 90% of the cases is we then demanufacture that yarn to go into something else. We chop it into short fibres, we put it into tapes. So why do we have to do that extra processing? The other thing with flax and hemp at the minute is supply chain. We've 90% chance it's grown in France, 60% chance it's been flown to China and it's come back. And whenever it comes back, it's actually textile grade, which is brilliant for Helen. It's nice, it could be soft, the nice bit of elongation, what you would put into textiles for clothing. It's not actually what we want, because what we want is, we want that stiffness. We don't want a flexible fibre. We don't want something which absorbs water. That's great for bedding products. It's great for mattresses, like Harris and Spinks over in Yorkshire. But we don't want water absorption. So there's a lot of things which we need to do to get the product working for composites industry. But that's what our job is. That's what we've taken on now. And trying to bring that whole network together and do it in regenerative form as well. We don't want to destroy the environment by doing this. We want to regenerate and do things the right way.
We spend a lot of time talking about scale and how we do this in a way that actually
I was humbled.
Oh, well, that's really exciting to hear about, and as you say, Helen, it's something that we can grow here and has been grown here for years, so it'd be great to see it be able to come back to Northern Ireland.